If we could have the roll call, please. And I don't know if that's me or Troy, if you do that.
Yeah, I can do that. So Bartlett, you're here.
I am here.
Jeff?
Present.
Emily?
Here.
And let me look at my screen. And Tom?
Here.
All right, and absent is Rebecca. And just a reminder that the meeting is recorded and the recording has started. So Bartlett, I'll pull up my screen for you for the agenda if you need that, and I'll turn it over to you.
Great. So are there any citizens? We do have one email that I want to make sure we get in the record, but are there any other citizens on the phone or on Zoom who'd like to make a public comment?
The person who sent, it's my understanding the person who sent that request was going to attend the meeting.
Yes, Dan is actually online, I believe. Dan, can you, are you muted or are you able to speak? I believe you want to talk during the public comments.
I did, yep. I was just waiting for everybody to get caught up. Yep. Dan Barker, 7426 Elmwood. Is now the time for public comment? May I proceed or?
Now is the time, sir.
Excellent. I don't want to go into a long story about this, but I did want to share when we've lived here for about 5 years. We've been part of the community for a lot longer. But one of the things that really impacted us when we moved right downtown was just how many people were out walking and doing stuff. And we moved here from Oregon, Wisconsin. It was just such a change, and it was neat. It made me feel bad because I'm not one to get out there and jog and run around. I've been trying to walk around more. But my point was it just had a great community feeling, and we've been trying to get to know our neighbors better, and we know some, and you know, I see Bartlett's on this call, and goodness, you're the king of that. But when I saw the neighborhood scram program, I get it, and I've said it before in other places, in other ways. I've got nothing but respect for the chief and his team. My interactions have been always positive, so I appreciate that. And I know it's a tough time, but I think we need to think about, you know, at what cost. We can certainly have perfect surveillance, and we know everything, and have cameras everywhere, and we're almost there. But I think being able to walk around and see your neighbors is one of the last places, I think, right or wrong, that people feel like they can disconnect from technology a little bit. So my concern about this program, I've laid out some of those others. I don't want to get into it. The other part I did hope the group could look at is the possibility of something long-term. And like I stated, kind of a use policy, a short-term and a long-term. And some other communities are rolling this out too. And I just saw on the news that somebody in Madison's bringing this up as well. That's all I really wanted to say. And thank you for having the public comment area. Appreciate it. I'm going to go back on mute and listen. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate the public comment. And yeah, obviously stick around. I think that's the first thing we're going to be discussing. And so I don't think you can really comment then, but we'd be delighted to have you listen and then follow up with email. And I'd like to have Dan's email, which is thoughtful, put into our minutes for next time. I think that's good to have on the record. So Chief, is that something we can make sure we can do?
Should.
Definitely. I'll make sure that it gets added to the minutes for this meeting.
That's great. Thank you.
Can I ask, since that's public, shouldn't we verify that it's okay with Dan to publish his email address?
Well, that's a good point because of the email. Well, he already emailed the mayor and everybody else.
But it's going to be public to the whole world once it's on our website. Is it on the? His letter isn't included on our packet, so I'm guessing hasn't been posted on the website. So as of now, his email address hasn't been available to everybody in Middleton by signing on to the web page.
That's a good point. Well, Dan, while you're still here, let me just add, before we try to figure out a way around it, do you mind if we publish your email in our minutes with your email address?
I do not. I'm on some other committees and stuff here in town, and that's my private email that's used for stuff. So yes, you have my permission to do so. Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate the consideration though, very
Yeah,
much.
me
Again,
too. I don't even know
great example.
who raised that, but thank you for raising that.
Excellent.
It was Tom.
Oh, thanks, Tom. Okay, great. All right, and I'm going to leave your email up, so when we come to the discussion on it, we'll move along. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to comment at this time? Okay, hearing none, we'll roll right along into approval of the minutes. Now, before we get into this, Tom, I think you had a comment you wanted to make about the minutes.
Yes. It was regarding my comments at our last meeting during the public, where I took off my hat as a committee member and made some comments as a citizen. And the minutes reported that I inquired as to whether a building or fire EMS code exists to require some type of outdoor lighting in the event of a power outage. And I did inquire about lighting in the event of a power outage, but it was related to a large public community indoor garage with 100 cars. And the problem was that it was indoors and it was totally black. Now, I realize that I'm confused and this wasn't appropriate to bring it up, but if it is going to be reported, I think the outdoor is incorrect.
Okay.
So,
should it be
I think
indoor?
it should be indoor, yeah.
Okay, okay.
But I'm thinking that much detail isn't necessary. And then the last sentence of the first paragraph said that I believe that other public safety committees in Dane County require such things. And I listened twice to the recording that's been posted, and I didn't see anywhere where I had said that, and I wouldn't think I would have said that because I know that that would be a state code and not something required by the county. So the last sentence seems also wrong and not necessary. So I would like to ask that the last sentence be removed. And I was going to try to make it, I think it should be really brief, just something, we don't need to go into a lot of detail, especially since it wasn't appropriate for the committee. Which I apologize for. Maybe I kind of rambled on about something that wasn't really in our jurisdiction or whatever. But my thought, how I thought it would be nice to put it, is that I raised concerns or questions regarding compliance, requirements and compliance for emergency backup lighting for a large community public indoor garage. I thought that's all that's needed. And then you could also say that it was determined this was not appropriate it was an appropriate issue for me to bring up at the meeting. But so I thought that's all that I think would really be appropriate or fair to put in the minutes, being that the other details, since we're not addressing these issues, the additional details aren't necessary anyway. Does that make sense? Or is that a fair
it made sense until you kept going and then you lost me. Would it, if we just said, we switched it to whether the code exists to require some type of indoor lighting and then basically cut the rest of it?
Well, that would be better.
Okay. I mean, that's going to be easier before we get into wordsmithing, which I think is the point we're trying to avoid extra verbiage. Okay. So, Tom, do you want to make a motion to that extent on the minutes to amend them that way?
Yes. I'll move to amend them that way.
Okay, thank you. I know we probably played the normal rule where it's a second. I generally avoid seconds, but to keep up with what we've been doing, may I have a second on that amendment?
This is Emily. I'll make that move.
Thank you.
That second.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Just to be clear, we are axing everything past the sentence of type of outdoor lighting in the event of a power outage and amending that for indoor lighting, and then axing everything past that. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right.
Correct.
Any objections? Then I'll say we pass this. Chief, can you make that change?
Yeah,
Are there,
just
yeah.
a quick question to Bartlett to clarify. So the second paragraph is also being removed?
correct.
Okay.
The second paragraph, just strike altogether. That
Yep, I'll take care of it. Thank you.
clarifying. Any other comments on the minutes? Then I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes as presented
Second.
and amended.
Tom will second.
Any objections? Then I will deem this passed. Okay, moving on. Let's get into the scram.
All right. So I'll quickly introduce the program, and then I'll turn it over to Detective Lieutenant Darren Zimmerman, who is he was the lead on this, kind of developed the program. It's been a very successful program. I can let Darren talk about how many people have registered so far for it. But the gist of this is, obviously, as Dan talked about, is more and more cameras, surveillance systems are throughout our city. And it's very time consuming for our staff to go door to door. When we canvass a neighborhood, we've had some pretty significant cases over the summer, a couple incidents that I think I briefed this committee on in the past about shots being fired. And we also had a report of a child abduction, which we were able later to prove didn't happen. And that those cases were solved based on surveillance systems that were being used at private residences that we were able to obtain by going door to door and canvassing the neighborhood. But as this committee has also talked about, is we are struggling to add staff. Our call volume continues to increase. Our violent crime, as we saw this summer, we're not to the extent of Madison, but we're still seeing some of that spill over to our city. So we're looking to get more efficient. And we're not looking at any live feeds. We're not looking for that. We have no desire to monitor people's surveillance systems. This was basically for those in our community that wanted to. It's a voluntary thing that they could register with the police department, tell us if they have a camera system, that we have a crime in the neighborhood. We can immediately contact those folks and see if there was any footage that they covered or they were able to capture on their surveillance systems that maybe we could use to help identify and capture the suspects. A great example is this past week we had a burglary at 3 a.m, and the officers who were investigating that case were able to check the registry and identify 2 homes right in that neighborhood that had cameras. And instead of spending hours canvassing the neighborhood, we were able to immediately contact those neighbors to see if they had any footage of the suspects. So it's more of an efficient thing. We need to become more efficient as the city grows and the police department is not growing. And I think it's a great program. And with that, I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Zimmerman, who can explain the program a little bit more in detail.
Thanks, Chief. And thanks, committee, for having me here. So if you guys have questions, that's kind of what I'm here for. The Chief did a very good job of summing this up. We got it going here. When was that letter sent out? Is there a date down there? We've been up for about a month or two. And again, it's been pretty successful. This is a completely voluntary program. We put it out there for any private residents or businesses that want to partake in it, to let us know that they have cameras for this. And again, it's just like the Chief said, we are not looking for live feeds, nor do we want live feeds at all. This is just a thing to, like the Chief said, make things more efficient when officers canvass and go door to door to see if there are cameras that potentially captured a crime. So, and the Chief gave some examples and a couple big ones over the summer. And so to point out the point of even canvassing that sometimes officers can miss the abduction this summer, if you folks remember it, that turned out to not be true, and unfortunately a 13-year-old getting mixed up in some lies and digging herself a hole. But the point of my story is that we did have officers canvassing for hours looking for video, and they didn't find any and again, we canvassed for hours that day. They didn't find any initially, and it was one of my detectives that obviously has a great deal of experience, that as we were driving the path, he happened to catch this camera and knocked on the door, and we had a very cooperative citizen that allowed us to look at that footage, and lo and behold, found some evidence on there that was contrary to kind of the statements that we were getting from this 13-year-old. So it was crucial, which led us to take a different path and find out other evidence. But it was crucial in figuring that out and kind of easing the public's mind that we potentially had a stranger abduction out there, which wasn't the case. So again, anybody can, any private citizen that's got their own cameras, they can register for this if they want to. This program is completely voluntary. Or any business that's got cameras and they want to let us know. It's completely voluntary. SCRAM, obviously, it stands for the Surveillance Camera Registry Mapping Program. That's where it comes from. Citizens can sign up on our website. There's a form on there they fill out. The chief's got it pulled up here. It's just a screenshot of the form, things that we ask for. It's secure and embedded into our website. We're just asking for a name and a telephone number or some way to contact that person and the address where those cameras are. And then how many cameras they have and what direction they face. You know, we don't tell them where to put them or what to do with them. It's just a speed thing, so that if, you know, we got a house on the corner and something happens on the south side, you know, we can pull this information up, and they're like, hey, that house has got cameras. It's on, you know, one of them facing the south side. Fantastic. And then the other thing we ask is how long their camera systems maintain. We don't dictate that. We don't care. We just want to know, because if we sometimes happen learn about a crime a week later because victims are reluctant to report or for whatever reason, so then we're behind that 8 ball by a week. And then we look and we figure out where it's at. We look at SCRAM to see if there's any residents or businesses that have cameras. And we look and we see, hey, this place does, but then we look and see, hey, they only record for 3 days, and then it's recorded over. So it's kind of, then we don't have to bother with that. And then the last question, let's see here. Does it record audio? So some of these cameras out here do. So that might make a difference. So they fill that out online, submitted. It's secure. We have then a mapping system that we use that just the officers have access to. Again, so that if we find out there's a crime in a particular area, we pull up the map. We can see if there's cameras in that area. To date, again, citizens are very willing to let us know that they have cameras and they want to help out, which is absolutely fantastic. As of Monday, we had 231 cameras registered at 80 locations throughout the city. And quite frankly, we had citizens outside of the city of Middleton that wanted to register their cameras, some out in the town of Middleton, some into Madison. And so people are, which is great, they're willing to help out and, hey, tell the police, hey, we've got these cameras if you need them. So again, and the reason we're doing it is to create efficiency. And sometimes here's the other thing is that officers might be canvassing, going door to door, and might see a camera, but lo and behold, we find this with some businesses that they're fake cameras or they're not working. So you know, we waste some time trying to contact that business only to find out that, hey, it's just a fake camera. So a SCRAM, you know, would help us in something like that. We can realize that you know, that it's not They don't have cameras there. So again, yeah, we're not monitoring live feeds. We don't want live feeds. If a crime does happen, and somebody's on the scram program and we look it up and, John Q. Citizen's got one at the corner of Sand Hill and whatever street it is. And so we contact them and say, hey, do you have video of this, hit and run accident or whatever it is? Or so we contact them and they say, yeah, you're welcome to look. They don't have to. That's their right. But if they do, and there's some sort of evidence on there that we could use, whether to eliminate somebody or it captures a suspect, then we would ask for a copy of that, which they don't have to give us, but they could provide us a copy, however their system works, whether that's emailing a screenshot or snippets. A lot of these cameras now, at least the home owners, are short motion sensor ones, so they're little snippets. Or if they have a system that requires a thumb drive or whatever. So they voluntarily, if they want to, give us that. We keep it and we maintain just whatever we need as case evidence of that little snippet or whatever is relevant to the crime. And we keep it as evidence like we would any other piece of evidence in a case or a crime. We don't worry about anything else outside of that.
Can I
Yeah.
make a comment real quick?
Yeah, absolutely, Emily.
Thanks. I really want to say how much I appreciate that case this summer, that you guys were able to find that evidence. That was one that moms across Dane County reached out to me on. They were very frightened when that case happened. So I'm sorry that it hit the media and everything happened, but I'm glad it was clarified and that this program worked. The other thing, and not to say, things happen, but I'm glad that it ended up working out, but that the video evidence was functioning in the way it was intended. And the other thing is when I did some grad school research, the difference was and it was on the same thing, using your private information, but giving it to emergency responders when there was car accident. When there was an accident, giving your cell phone address access. But the idea was that you were opting in. And it turned out when you had the changeover from, I call the police and I'm giving them access, it was a 96% yes, approval rate by people who heard this comment. But if it was just in general, I want the police to have access, it wasn't that high. But when it was like, yeah, there's an emergency and we feel they should have access because we want to get people to safety, it was a 96% approval rating by America in general. So with that, I want to say my whole heart's in on this. This is a good program and the citizens are opting in. So I didn't mean to interrupt, but it sounds like a great program. So
thanks, Emily, and we like it. And again, the bottom line of it is that it's really an efficiency program, because this isn't anything we wouldn't have done otherwise if we didn't have this program. If we didn't have it, we'd have cops and detectives knocking on doors in the area of the crime and saying, hey, do you have video by any chance? But now we just feed that up saying, hey, they've already told us they have video. Let's go knock on that door, not wasting any time, or give them a call and say, hey, do you have video of this? Wherever the crime is. So that's the gist of it. Again, I'm just trying to think if there's other questions, other things that
Darren, I think Jeff got
let
it.
me see who's got comments out here. Tom, did you want to comment on this at all? Lost Tom.
Oh.
Okay, let's go to Travis. Oh, wait, you're with them. You want it.
Sure, it's a great program.
I'm just going down my list reading names. Jeff, there you go.
Yeah.
Jeff.
Would you mind describing the origins of the program, where it came from, who thought of it, and how it came into being here in the Middleton Police Department?
Yeah, you bet, Jeff. So, quite frankly, one of our dispatchers that runs our webpage brought it up, and he had heard of it being used in other communities, of this idea of folks voluntarily letting us know that they have video cameras if a crime's committed. Come give us a call and we'll see if we can help you out. So it was actually the guy that runs our web page, and he said, hey, I can kind of set up the web page for you if this is something you guys are interested in. I listened to it. I'm like, that sounds like a very good idea, making things more efficient. And again, working with community members to make the community safer. If that answers your question, Jeff.
It does, yes. And how long has this program been in operation? You said like about a month.
A month or two. Yeah, I can. Give me a second. I can look and see when we first started this. Let's see here.
It hasn't been long, and Darren can look up the number, but right away we got a lot of people very quickly interested in giving us their information. So
yeah, within the first week
we
within the first week we had 60 people register. So let's see if it's on here.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is, and like I said, I don't think it's been long here. I want to give you guys. Let's see here.
What kind of policies and procedures have you guys put in place in terms of using this sort of data?
Yep, we gave briefing training to all our officers on, hey, this is here. It's a resource for you. But that's the training that we've had, and that's just a tool in our belt to use.
So that training that consisted of, this is how you use it, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Really, there's not much that this is out here. If citizens report this, the information to us, the dispatcher will enter it in the program, put it on the map. All the officers really have to do is know that this is here. If you get a crime in this particular neighborhood, go ahead, feel free to, that you think video would be useful for, pull up the map. Yeah, it's here. You know, so-and-so's got some camera, we'll give them a call. And we've told them, you know, that this is a voluntary program, that you still have to do the normal things that you have to do when you're canvassing, like, you know, a call, ask if they got it, ask permission, ask if they want to provide us anything, and, you know, normal things that they would do on a normal canvas.
Do any of these citizens opting into these kind of program have any kind of liability protection? Should, you know, if they provide a police department with footage that may result in a conviction and maybe it's wrong, does somebody potentially get sued?
Well, I wouldn't see it as any different than somebody, an eyewitness reporting something, or, you know, or if we went to your front door, you know, even if we did a regular on-foot canvas and saw somebody had a camera and said, hey, can we look at it? So as far as liability to a private citizen, I guess I don't know. I mean, I've got cameras too, I guess, around my house, and I don't know if you know, if I give my video to Middleton PD because there's a hit and run right out in front of my house. I don't know if I'm on the privately liable. I don't know if insurance would. I have no idea. To answer your question, Jeff.
Is that potentially something that we should explore? I mean,
Well, I think it's. I don't know that would. I don't think the city would be on any type of hook for that, because it'd be no. I mean, it's somebody's private residence, and if they want to volunteer information, I don't think it'd be any different than them.
Well, I can presenting evidence in terms of like a video feed, which a video feed, you might have proprietary issues with camera feeds. Companies might have their own policies about, hey, what can a citizen actually give out? If we're holding that as evidence, I would imagine that courts would potentially hold that to a much different standard than, say, an eyewitness statement, which could be, addressed much more in a.
Well, yeah, but I don't think, once a citizen buys a camera, they can do what they want with it. And I'm not sure that a camera company would be on the hook for something like that.
This is Emily. Just so you know, I work for the federal government, and we routinely hand out our video when there's, say, like a hit and run outside of our federal building to the local police. And in the 6 years I've been working on it and helping managers at the local level, because there's a lot of things we have to go through to release that, we've never had anyone come back. It's not to say it may not happen, but it's probably a very rare thing. So I would say it's, something to think about, but not worry. The only thing that his line of questioning made me think about, and I'm glad you asked these questions because it gives us a framework that we've thought through this, and I didn't read through the packet, so I apologize thoroughly. But is there an idea of maybe following up with that homeowner in, say, 2 or 3 years, just saying, hey, you're still on our program, thanks for doing it. Basically, if they've moved, they're no longer on that house.
I mean, that's a great point. That's probably something we should think about is, once every year. Yep, or every other year, because there's, send out a mass email, hey, are you still part of this program? Are you still living here? Do you still want to be a part of it? Absolutely, I think that's a great idea.
Just, a check-in. So see that line of thinking gets me to where I'm thinking. So thanks, everyone.
Like, one more question. Does anybody participating in this program have any like confidentiality protections or anything like that?
Like, as far as what, Jeff? I guess like just providing the camera footage.
Yeah, well, it's like that way, you can, the police department, if somebody is like, if you're in a case, an individual can say, where did this footage come from? How much information about that individual would you be obliged to divulge?
Yeah, again, I think the point that that Darren has talked about is this is no different than what we've been doing for many, many years. And we've used video footage from residences and businesses, and we've never encountered any issues. Previously, no privacy issues, no liability on the city or on the homeowner. This is just another way for us to speed up, again, our efficiency of locating that information. But we've never encountered any issues, and we get videos on retail thefts from businesses. We've had, the examples from this summer, we've had those cases, and it's never come back where the homeowner or business owner is being sued. So we're not aware of any. I've never heard of any in all my time in law enforcement, and we've been collecting videotapes when I first started. Now it's much different, but I'm not aware of any, and we can look into that, but this isn't any more than what we've been doing in the past, but just, again, locating those residences that have it so we can obtain it quicker before it disappears, and we can hopefully identify the suspects quicker.
Right. Yeah, so what I was basically thinking, so yes, it's efficient. The efficiency aspect, I can really appreciate how useful that would be in terms of, solving crimes and getting that done quicker. I also wonder how much additional information then will you be getting because you're being much more efficient with this, and because you're, dipping your fingers into a potentially broader pool. What does that mean?
Yeah, and that's a good point. And I'll give you a great example, Jeff. In our homicide in 2017, it was crucial building a timeline after the fact, and we used video for that. We used video from the library, from the PDQs at the time, from the church, from another local business, and it was crucial for the Mass Metro. We used video from UW Hospital. So it was crucial in building that timeline and showing what that suspect was wearing, where he was at. And none of that in a homicide trial, came back for liability issues or anything like that. It was, and it wouldn't be anything different with this program other than speeding up what we did in that case and being able to say, hey, this business has got that, versus going door to door.
I'd also add that you have no expectation of privacy when you're out in public, or if you're walking on a sidewalk, or if you're caught on these cameras. So I could see maybe if somebody was reluctant to give their address, you could probably try to put them as like an anonymous witness. This camera came from an anonymous person who declined to provide their address. It might be a little tricky if it went to trial and they had to figure out where that camera was, but we could certainly do all that we could to protect them.
And Cap, you reminded me of a very good point. We don't want interior cameras, so which goes back to what Travis is saying with privacy. There's an expectation if cameras are inside somebody's home, we're looking for stuff that's outside that is relevant to potentially a crime that happened outside. So,
Kathleen?
Can you talk a little bit about the way in which you're broadening the visibility of the program within neighborhoods in the city?
Yeah, just by putting it out on a press release. Is that kind of stuff you're talking about, Kathleen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we just put it out on our Facebook page, our social media platforms. We put out a press release and let people know that program's out there. It's the way we've kind of been advertising it, if you will.
Okay, and so I'm just thinking personally that I think the thing I can do is make sure that my neighborhood association knows about it, and that's part of the communication to our neighborhood, just to make sure that you're broadening the reach. Because if someone doesn't have whatever tools you're just mentioning, I think it would be good just for people to hear the message. I don't know if you've thought about going to neighborhood associations specifically, but I think that could certainly broaden the reach, especially if it's coming from people within those neighborhoods saying, like, this is an opportunity for you to help. It might even, I know you're getting great numbers, so that's great.
That's a great idea though, Kathleen, is hitting up our, I know a particular couple of neighbors, well, my board knows about it because I told them about it, but yeah, we should hit those other ones up for sure. That's a good idea.
We do have those stickers too. Is there some of those left yet?
Yeah, that's right.
Like the ring has the stickers you can put on your door. We got a bunch of these scram stickers made up that you can put visible on your house that would kind of advertise it.
People love stickers.
That's awesome.
Tom, can we hear you now? Do you have any questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, the only thing that hit me is we've had several accidents inside our garage, but I know there's resistance to cameras down there. Personally, I was thinking of just turning on my dash cam, but that wouldn't be something you could. Well, anyway, so and inside a condo garage, I'm guessing you'd almost have to. I don't know how that would affect you were talking about the right to privacy in a public area. I would think a community garage is considered the same as a public area, but I'm not an attorney.
Yeah, and if something like that happened to Tom in a condo parking garage or apartment complex garage, we get that kind of footage all the time. We just ask in a condo situation, we ask the board, or an apartment complex situation, we just ask the management, and they're usually very cooperative about giving that footage over to us.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
So I have a couple comments too. So one thing is just a little bit on messaging, and this is going to lead a little bit to, I think, Dan's, some of what he was getting at. Just from my systems research and all I've done, I really push back when the primary purpose is efficiency, because we can get hyper efficient about everything and give up everything it is to be human. We can all walk around with trackers. We know where we are at all times. Well, we've done that already with our phones, right? But So just on messaging, I think the key, what I'm hearing you say over and over, is just you do this already, but you have to go door to door once something happens. And all this is doing is giving you a map of where people have already said, I've got a camera. I want to talk to you if there's an issue. So it doesn't actually change anything other than just kind of doing that door to door knocking early. Is that a
Yeah,
fair?
that's a completely fair way to put it, Bartlett.
And then I also want to touch on something Dan wrote that I thought was really interesting. What happens? Somebody registers and then you come knock, something happens. And well, let's go with the kidnapping situation or alleged kidnapping. And somebody's got a camera right there, exactly where you want to see it. And they say, you know, I don't want to give you my stuff. Doesn't that raise all kinds of red flags and cause you to freak out? What's going on in that situation?
Well, we take, like in any case, we would take the totality of the circumstances. You know, why we would ask, you know, why not? And you know what? They might have a good reason. They might have something on there that that is perfectly legit that they didn't necessarily want police to see. I don't know. So there might be a good reason for it, but you know, but if all of a sudden that same person doesn't want us to see their footage, and then two neighbors say, "Well, I saw, you know, a girl fit in that description go into that house," okay, then things are starting to add up. So we take all sorts of information, filter it through, see what's adding up, see what you compare it with statements, compare it with timelines. So it you know, we would ask. They might have a very good reason for it, and like, okay, that makes sense. But again, you know, okay, we'll keep that in our back pocket. Not sure why they'd sign up for this program and they didn't want to, but that's, like I said, there might be some good reason on it. I don't know, maybe, well, you know, there might be something.
I get it. But at that point, I mean, you also have the ability, and I mean, you have the ability now to get a warrant. If you
Yep,
have,
absolutely.
okay.
Yep, yeah, and then exactly. So then all of a sudden, going back to my example, yeah, we don't want to give it to you, but the neighbor said, "Hey, we saw a girl fit in that description. Go in there." Okay, I think it's warrant time.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing. Absolutely.
Okay. And then the last thing I just want to comment, and again, I think this, I got to meet you, Dan, because you hit on some things. There's this certain unease about the camera state or whatever, the surveillance state, and that we're voluntarily giving all this stuff and putting this stuff out. I mean, it freaks me out when I walk around our neighborhood and all of a sudden every other house has a camera. And it just kind of gives me a weird vibe, even though, I mean, totally, I get it, but it's just weird. Same thing with the sticker, the whole scram and all, there's this whole deterrence factor with it. And for some people, I think it's gonna be really important. People put up their fake cameras already.
Yeah.
But the in red, if you can see this, we can see you, Middleton PD, that kind of infers there is this direct hardwire in or whatever. And that was a lot of the comments I saw from Dan talking about this, is there's a difference when you're just going after something happens saying, hey, we're gathering evidence and we just happen to know you have a camera, versus this kind of hint that you've got more eyes out there and that you could be tapping into any neighborhood at any point. And that's what this thing infers to me, that you have the ability to look through those cameras at any point. And so, yeah, I don't know if we're actually doing anything other than discussing this, giving you guys some feedback, but that's one that raised my hackles a little bit.
Yeah, I would like to echo that, because when I read that sticker, I'm picturing a live feed. I understand that's not what the program is, but that's the immediate reaction I have to that. It's like, oh, there's a cop, you know, zooming around with a little camera doing what they want. One of the concerns that I have with this is this program is in place and expanding, and we don't seem to have a really solid framework for its use, or for, you know, like, you know, policy in place for, you know, limits of it, you know, what citizens can expect out of it. You know, it's like, great, you signed up, now what? I think some of that needs to be developed a little bit more as the program expands, in case something blows up in your face. So that way you don't have, a judge or a lawyer going, hey, do you guys have any policies and procedures on this? Well, no, that doesn't look good. So.
Well, and I think same thing, the citizen expectation. I mean, are the citizens who are signing up thinking you're there to protect them if something's going down versus, so I think just from the discussion, the way you presented up front, I think if it's really crystal clear, this is a registry, so if there's a problem, we know where to go, not that this is automatically coming to us. And stop, you can bookend it, which gets back to Dan's comments earlier on. This isn't this open-ended program. It's not this whole thing. It's like, it is literally a registry so we know where to go, period. I think that would be very helpful. And then with stickers are great. Some people want that kind of deterrent, but I do think we need to take that the red letters out.
Some people like that.
I know, but it's kind of misleading. I mean, what if somebody's counting on the cops to come save them because some scary person's banging in the door?
Yeah.
And you're like, well, we never saw it. I don't know.
They do sign a waiver, and I only looked at it once. They sign a waiver when they sign up for this program.
Yeah.
There's a lot of expectations put right there that, we're not going to monitor it. I don't remember what all is on there. If you can correct me, Darren, if you remember, but it's laid out pretty clearly to the camera owner what's going on here.
How about if we had two different stickers?
I'm sorry, what?
I was thinking, Bartlett, based on your suggestion, and also Jeff's, how about if we had two different stickers? One that maybe a homeowner did like that kind of language that they could put on their front door, but there might be another homeowner that didn't. But if we gave them the opportunity to pick what sticker they wanted to place on their house, if they had the option.
Either. As long as there's the waiver, like you said, Travis, with
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now on our website, and there's a disclaimer right on there. That you're not giving Middleton PD access to your cameras. This simply lets us know that you have cameras, and we may reach out to you if crime occurs in your neighborhood and we think your footage could be helpful. So it's right on the website. And then the other thing on that disclaimer, it says Middleton Police may ask a registrant to check their recordings for a specific date and time if investigators determine a potential video evidence in the vicinity of the registered surveillance system. So any footage containing or related criminal activity may be collected by Middleton PD, with their consent. Under no circumstance will a registrant construe that they are acting as an agent or employee of Middleton PD. And under no circumstance will Middleton PD utilize any information obtained to access or view live recordings or feeds directly from cameras owned by residents. And that says that they can withdraw at any time. So I should have took a screenshot of that for you folks. I apologize.
No, that actually your this form is extremely helpful, and I think if that basically you essentially take that and turn that into your policy. And I would recommend that where is it, the Middleton fourth bullet, police department may ask a registrant to check the recordings. I'd also still put in there every time, we ask for your cooperation, but this too is voluntary. Just I think that'll go a long way with all of this, all these questions.
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, Bartlett, right on the website, scrolling up under how it works, it's actually highlighted.
Oh, I know, I see that, but when you actually get into terms of use, I'm just telling you.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm a lawyer too, so I'm so used to.
Oh, then you know.
It's just awful. It's just awful. But no, I'm really that is a really nice disclaimer or registration statement. And I think that can easily just fold into your policy, so that it's very clear. It's bookended and total. It's really, like you said, a registry, which I think is where we all got lost. It seemed like more. So.
Yeah, so if I'm understanding rightly, yeah, the big issue would be the logo there with the red, and then just having a OP or a policy.
Yeah, because I think with that language in the red, basically, if you don't want people to think you have a live feed, that's got to go. That's basically my assessment of that.
And I think it does a really nice job on the website of saying things like, do you want to help keep your neighborhood safe and deter crime? Like you're not going to the public like, we need efficiencies and you can help us with that. This is not that perspective. So I think on the website it is a good way, but I agree about the red language. It pushes you in a different direction than I think the goal is for the program in our community.
Sure.
I just wanted to bring up, when we work a case for the federal buildings in the 6-8 area, we only give the local police that, like say minute and a half before the event, the minute after. We don't give them like 3 days worth of data. So someone along the way said, what if someone doesn't want to give because something might have happened? So I just want to make sure you guys understand, and this is what I understand the Middleton police are doing. They're just asking about that one event at that one day and time. They're not asking for the whole series, 3-day series. So it's a very short attention, get a copy of it. And what we do is we actually put it on the old school little thumb drive and send it on over. So however that happens today, which is probably much more tech savvy, it's just probably a 30-second video or 2-minute video.
And that's what you're going to find with a lot of these home video systems is that short little, they're motion activated. It's a short little clip, and most of the time you can just email it. The ones that I have, you can just email the snippet of what it pops up. And that's how they are, like the Ring and Arlo and Doorbell. And it's when we start getting into businesses where, we might need a thumb drive and we might have to look over an hour or two to see if the suspect walks by, but that's all we're looking for. So.
Chief, do we need to do anything we don't need to do anything, do we? We just.
Nope, there's no motion or anything like that. I was just bringing the attention to the public
I
safety.
appreciate that. No, it's a really good discussion. Thank you for letting us get engaged on that.
I would like to have just kind of periodically have this this be something that we review and see how it's developing, and make sure it's not moving in a direction that we don't intend for it to go in.
Definitely. And that is definitely not our intention at all, Jeff, but that's a good point to bring it to this committee to make sure that we don't expand the program without getting some input.
So what we have, is that on our annual report? Can we just have how many people are registered?
This is the first year that we've done it, but has it been in the annual report? I mean, we can put it in there. It's probably, when we talk about our community programs, it's probably one of the programs that we can highlight.
It's a good one. That'd be a good one. Yeah. Cool. All right, let's move along, folks. Thank you for the discussion. That was great. And Chief, I think this is you.
It is. Sorry about that. I was trying to click too many buttons and I couldn't unmute myself. So the next thing is talking about our complaints. As we talked about a few months ago, we want to start bringing our complaints and our use of force to this committee for review. As we kind of navigate the use of force area, as we started to have some of our use of force training and hopefully get some in-person training in the next couple months. We're holding off on that at this point until we feel comfortable that everybody has a good understanding of what's allowed by law and in our policy. We still wanted to bring our complaints to this committee to review. Just a quick summary, since July, we've had 4 complaints. I'll turn it over to Captain Kukuski to talk about them in more detail, but that's out of 8,000 calls since July until the end of September. So a very low percentage. And as you can see that we provided the details that all of them have been unfounded. And with that, I'll turn it over to Captain Kukuski to discuss each one in more detail and provide you with those details, and then also be available for questions too.
All right, thanks, Chief. So we kind of talked about it at the meeting a couple months ago, just how the complaint process works. And just kind of do a really quick review on that. We have 7 different complaint categories. Disparate treatment is one of them. Procedure is another one. Conduct, use of force, communication, performance, and property. So when these complaints come in, they're usually taken by the patrol sergeant or the lieutenant. And then they'll investigate it and they'll let me know that there's a complaint that's been filed. And we decide which category it's going to go into. So I'll assign it to that primary, now it's going to be the lieutenant. And then they actually investigate it if it's kind of a low-level complaint. So in this case, kind of looking at the quarter from July to October, as you can see there, we actually had 4 complaints, like the chief said. So what I'll do is I'll just kind of walk through them real quick. I'll give you a Reader's Digest version of what the issue was and then what the finding was. The first one there on July 23rd, this is definitely the most complex of the 4 that we got. Sometimes we get these and it's I'm concerned about one issue. In this case, it was many issues that this person was concerned about, but all of them were found to be unfounded. This started with a traffic stop. The person was stopped because the registered owner of the car did not have a valid driver's license. So that gives the officer cause to stop the vehicle. The complaint originated actually at the time of the traffic stop. We're often called afterwards, but they wanted the sergeant to come to the scene. Their main concern was that the officer was quote unquote rude and racist. They felt the car was searched without cause. They were told by the officer, allegedly, that the reason for the stop was, quote, the African-American passenger, end quote. They alleged that the officer told the occupants or that they were threatened that something would happen if they didn't cooperate. They claimed that the officers lied about the reason for the traffic stop, that the primary officer tried to conceal his identity, and that the officers at the scene said that the supervisor did not want to respond. So there's kind of a lot to unpack there. So how that worked was the sergeant did respond to the scene and talk to those folks and try to get an idea firsthand what their concerns were. And then afterwards, what they do is they interview the officers that were involved, and most importantly, they look at the video. The body camera video is very important in cases like that. You can really get an idea word for word what's happening, and you can watch, if there's 3 officers there, you can watch 3 different body cameras. So what the supervisor found out was he saw no evidence that the officer was rude or quote unquote racist. They claimed that the car was searched, but actually never was searched. What actually happened was our canine actually went around the vehicle during the course of the traffic stop. That is permissible to do. It's not considered a search. And again, we determined that there was not a search of the vehicle in that case. The officer never said that the reason for the stop was because of the African-American passenger. Nothing of that sort was said, which I'll get to that at the end as far as some of the statements that were made. But the passengers are the ones they kind of brought up, and they accused and implied that that was the reason for the traffic stop. But that was not said by any of the officers. There were no threats per se made by the officers. How it actually played out was during the course of the dog going around the car, the procedure is the canine handler tells them to roll up the windows. It's actually for their safety so that the dog wouldn't suddenly jump into the car or something like that. So they were asked repeatedly to roll up their windows, and one of the occupants continuously refused to do it. So looking at the body camera, we're able to pull the exact quote out of there, what they said. And what the officer told them, if people are not going to cooperate, we're going to take everybody out of the car, and then I'm going to run my dog around the car. So that's a factual statement. That's what would have happened, and that's what the officer told them. So once he said that, they actually did roll up the window and cooperated. There was no search done of the car, and it was done soon thereafter. The other issue, they claim that the officer lied about the reason for the traffic stop. That was found to be not true. The officer said repeatedly the reason for the stop, which was that the registered owner did not have a valid driver's license. And there's also no evidence that the primary officer tried to conceal his identity. At one point, the officer actually approached one of the occupants who had a camera, their phone out with a camera, and moved closely and kind of showed off his name tag to them. So there's no evidence that any of that was going on either. And then lastly, at no time did they say that the supervisor didn't want to respond. The supervisor did respond out to the scene and talk to these folks and took their information, and then he started the complaint investigation. So once he did all that, and this process actually takes quite a bit of time. Our goal is to do it within 30 days. I don't remember exactly how long this one took. It was probably at least a couple of weeks. So these are very time-consuming investigations, and the sergeant, now lieutenant, determined that everything was unfounded. So that was our first complaint investigation from that quarter. Any questions about that one?
It looks time consuming having to deal with that.
Yeah, it is. You know, the body cameras are great, but then you have to take the time to review all that and talk to all the officers as well that were involved, talk to witnesses, and then you got to type it all up in a report as well. So yeah, they're pretty time consuming, but obviously it's something that we have to do.
So by not having a valid driver's license, is that like their license was suspended, or did they not have a license at all?
In this case, I believe it was expired. So we have a couple different ways the officers do that. We have, obviously as they're driving around, they can manually enter license plates, which is pretty common. But we also have some squad cars that automatically run license plates. So that's kind of how these things get triggered. And then if you see that the person doesn't have a valid driver's license, that gives them reason to stop the car. So that was the.
I don't want to belabor it. I'm just curious, and quickly, why do you walk the dog around if it's not a search?
So, in order to the courts have ruled you can't extend the traffic stop. You can't make it any longer without reasonable suspicion. So you would run a dog around the car if there's just some suspicious activity going on. It doesn't give you enough to search it, but the air around the exterior of a car is considered, searchable. There's no expectation of privacy there. But the issue is extending the traffic stop and detaining them longer than you normally would. So the courts have said if you have some kind of reasonable suspicion, you can run a dog around the exterior of a vehicle.
It seems to be a lot of work for an expired driver's license.
Yeah, well, as far as the complaint, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's hours spent on this. So as far as, what we do at this point, as with all complaints, once they're done, we send the complainant a pretty lengthy and detailed letter. Often those are multiple pages as well, which the investigator also has to write up, which they'll outline, all the issues that were going on and then what the findings were. So we don't just kind of take the information and leave them hanging. We always get back to them about, here's what we found in the investigation.
It is, time consuming, but it's a fantastic customer service. You're our people. We're trying to protect you. Look what we did over your complaint. Here's our findings. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a pretty thorough process. That's what I'll say. And we also, if there's a notification or a complaint, we notify the officers as well. There's a whole process for that where they receive written notification, so that they're not just blindsided by finding out that someone made a complaint against them. So we notify them right off the bat as well. If someone filed a complaint against you, at some point I'm gonna have to just talk to you about what happened during that traffic stop. So definitely a process for these. Any other questions on that one? So the next one was on August 8th. And this actually was a result, it stemmed from the shooting on Northbrook Drive that happened that night. So we got numerous 911 calls about shots being fired in that area. I think there was 11 to 13 shell casings found up in that area. So it generated a lot of calls to our 911 center. And being that we were right down the street, we actually got there literally within moments of those calls being received. And actually one of the home surveillance systems that we got a hold of, you can actually see one of the persons involved in it kind of drive away from the area, and literally a squad car pulls in to the street within probably less than 5 seconds of that vehicle being there. So the officers were there immediately, and they noticed once they got out and started walking around, a white SUV quickly speed away from the area. So they radioed that to some of their other officers responding, which obviously that was pretty suspicious, the car leaving right where the shots were being fired. So they did stop that car over actually at the Quick Trip at Parmenter and Century. And what we do in those situations is we initiate, it's called a high-risk traffic stop. When we think there might be weapons involved, we take everybody out of the vehicle one at a time. They're handcuffed and they're searched. So in this particular case, we got a complaint from the grandmother of one of the vehicle occupants, and she was upset that her daughter and her granddaughter were handcuffed and searched out of that vehicle, and that this was done by male police officers, and she did not think that that was proper. So we did open up a complaint investigation on that. This one wasn't nearly as in-depth because we had all the shots fired, the high-risk stop, and we pretty quickly determined that the officer's actions were justified. Our policy manual is pretty clear about this. When there's a high-risk traffic stop, all the occupants are handcuffed and they're searched, like I said. So the officers did that exactly as they should have. The policy also says, ideally you would have someone of the same gender do a search, but in this case there were no other female officers actually working that night, so it wasn't really practical to do that. The only other alternative would have been to call for like a sheriff's deputy or Madison to come to the scene, which at that point you're not going to do that. So the alternative is to have one other person as a witness while you do the search, which in this case there was the entire shift of officers there witnessing everything. So in the end, this complaint was, the officer was actually exonerated because what they're alleging did happen, but the officer's actions were completely justified and they did follow policy. And then I would just add there that the vehicle that they did stop, we ultimately did end up charging the driver of that vehicle with the shooting. So that was the shooter and it was the correct vehicle. So that's why they were being appropriately cautious.
I'm going to put an exclamation on it. You got a complaint for stopping the vehicle and searching these people, one of whom was the shooter that you're responding to the call.
Yes.
Okay, just want to be clear.
But there again, I still looked at all those body cameras, looked at the video footage. This woman got a letter. She actually 2 letters. You get a complaint acknowledgement letter saying, we have your complaint. This is what we're looking into. And then she also got a complaint disposition letter saying this is what our findings were. So again, pretty thorough. Any other questions on that one?
This is Emily. I just want to say thank you for being diligent in that process. Just like the last person that was talking, it could be easy just to say, well, they're guilty, so let's just move on. But it sounds like you guys followed all the protocols, and I appreciate that.
Right, and I put in the letter too that I appreciate why she's concerned, because she may not have all the information.
Mm-hmm.
So I did put in there, why they were stopped, and all the reasons for it, and you know that it is our policy that we do these things. So you know, we do try to put in those letters why we do what we do. The next one there is it was on August 11th. This is a disparate treatment complaint. In this situation, the complainant alleged that he was being profiled because he was a, quote, black male driving in Middleton, end quote, after recent shootings. So he's referring to, you know, we had kind of a rash of shots fired calls there for a few weeks, which wasn't very fun. So he alleged that that was the reason he was stopped. He was an African-American male. He also alleged that the officer followed him for, quote unquote, 10 to 15 minutes before the traffic stop, and that the stop was made without reasonable suspicion, and that they searched his car without his consent. So once again, the complaint was opened up on that and investigated, and there was no evidence found to support any of those allegations. The car was stopped at 1:05 in the morning because it drifted out of its traffic lane while it was turning onto the Beltline on-ramp. And that, for a third shift officer, when cars are drifting around at night, that's a huge red flag for possible drunk driving. So he sees the first lane deviation as the car is getting on the Beltline. And then as he's behind it, there's multiple other lane deviations. And in talking to the officer, and this is backed up by GPS data as well, he first comes across this car at the intersection of Century and Parmenter Street. So there's no possible way that he could have followed this person for 10 to 15 minutes, as was alleged. I mean, at 1 in the morning to cover that distance would take probably no more than 5 minutes. So that was part of the determination on that one. The reason for the stop, like I said, was the multiple lane deviations. And then as soon as the officer approached the car, he immediately smelled the odor of marijuana. So that's obviously another red flag, and that gives the officer reason to search the vehicle. So in this case, he mentioned that the car was searched without his consent, but the officer didn't need his consent because he could smell the odor of marijuana. At that point, he didn't need it. So the occupants were taken out, the car was searched, and they found 49 grams of marijuana in the car and 1.2 grams of cocaine. And this complainant was taken to jail for possession with intent to deliver on marijuana charges. So he made, you know, a number of claims in that complaint, but all of them were found to be unfounded as well.
Well, to be fair to the gentleman, when a cop is behind you, time really does slow down.
That's a fair point. Yeah, even I get a little nervous when an officer's behind me. The last one there is from August 28th. Another disparate treatment complaint. This one's it started with a domestic complaint that we were investigating. Actually, again, not too far from the police department, up off of Northbrook Drive. And in this case, the complainant was upset that he felt he was racially profiled after that incident because he was stopped in a parking lot and told that he matched the description of that domestic violence suspect. He didn't believe the officer. He thought he was racially profiled, and he didn't think the officer was actually looking for anybody. So he filed a complaint. So the lieutenant investigated it. Obviously, we quickly determined that they were legitimately looking for this domestic violence suspect, who was wanted for strangulation, battery, and disorderly conduct. So some pretty serious charges. According to the victim, the suspect was a black male, 38 years old, driving a blue Ford Focus rental car. So as this officer is kind of checking around the area for that suspect, he observes a blue Ford Fusion rental car being driven by an adult black male. Again, just blocks from that scene. So he followed the vehicle. He actually ran the license plate to confirm that it was a rental car. That's how we determined that. So he never actually made a traffic stop. What he did was he was following behind the vehicle when it suddenly pulled into an apartment complex. So what he did was he just got out of his squad car and just made consensual contact with this person. Basically just got out and started chatting with him and asked him what his name was and explained that they're looking for somebody involved in a domestic and just trying to see who he was. So this person did produce his identification, which showed that he wasn't who they were looking for. So at that point, the officer was satisfied to end the contact, but this person was upset and felt that he was racially profiled. So this complaint was also unfounded. We determined that, although it wasn't the correct person, all of the totality of the circumstances with his proximity to the scene of the domestic, driving the same make and color vehicle, roughly the same age and race as the suspect, it was reasonable to at least have a chat with this person. Again, there was no traffic stop. He was never detained. He was free to leave at any point. But that person's perception was that they were profiled. So we determined that wasn't accurate. But there again, we went through the process and explained to him that we looked into it. He was sent a letter, and we did all those things that we did for the others as well. So those are the four from this past quarter. And I'll emphasize what the chief said. So of the, I can't remember what he said, it was 8,000 calls that we dealt with, to only have, the four complaints and to have them unfounded is I think it's pretty good. And we're always looking to improve. We want to make sure we're investigating when people make accusations, and we make sure that we do that. But what is striking with some of these is some of the claims that people make, and some of the, quite frankly, some of the outrageous claims. The one that really stuck with me was when the passengers of the vehicle in that first case, claimed that the officer said the reason that we stopped you is because of your African-American passenger, which is just outrageous. And I know that particular officer was pretty upset that this accusation is made, and was certainly glad that we found it the way we did. And it makes these officers really appreciate body cameras.
Yeah.
Everything recorded, because otherwise, it's our word against someone else's, and it's nice to have everything on camera as well. So I think those are my main points I wanted to bring up. Do you have any other points, Chief?
Just a couple things quickly is, I know at one of our previous meetings we talked about, or there was a question about, do you guys know if these complaint forms get returned to the police department? So we're pretty unique, like we do with our use of force, is we're pretty thorough, and it's pretty, it's not common with other police departments to do what we do. So even if somebody makes kind of off the cuff comment, I want to file a complaint, that we take that as a complaint. And a lot of times we see this as while it's happening, as you saw during that first complaint, it was during the traffic stop that they were making the complaints. And what did we do? We have the sergeant show up and start that complaint investigation. So a lot of these times they happen immediately. Somebody gets stopped for speeding. They're really upset. They call the police department and make a complaint. And then the sergeants or the supervisors will try to get a hold of them, and we don't get any type of return phone call, but we still treat those as a true complaint. We do a thorough investigation. They get letters, and the officers get interviewed. And additionally, in these four cases, we provided a complaint form to all four of the complainants, and none of the complaint forms were mailed back to the police department. Yet we still did a thorough investigation, made sure that we were doing everything right. If we find when we're doing these investigations that an officer made a mistake or there's a policy violation, we deal with that. The complaint form got returned back. So I think that's really important to note, that if somebody says the word complaint, we do a thorough investigation, and we look into that matter to make sure that we didn't make a mistake. I think that's about it, Travis. I think you covered everything else pretty thoroughly.
And again, Chief, you and I had some of these discussions in other settings and all, but the whole perception of the police and the community and all these things, for me, this is such a huge step forward of taking everything seriously and responding to these folks. And I'm thinking of the guy at the last incident there. Of course he was profiled. He knows he was profiled. Why else was he stopped? And he was profiled because we were looking for a black dude in a blue Ford. I mean, yeah, it's the reason we stopped you or had this consensual stop or whatever. But you get to explain this. Like, dude, we took this seriously. We looked into it. This really went down the way we said. You know, what message does he have now? He's like, oh, they actually listened to me. And they actually took the time and wrote a letter. Now, hopefully he has a better appreciation for what you guys are doing now, where otherwise he just walk around assuming he got profiled. So I think this is, I know it's a ton of work, but as a citizen on this board, as a citizen / and on this board, this is one of the best things I think we got going for building that trust.
Thanks, Bartlett. Thank you.
I just want to say I really appreciate the work that you guys are dealing with that. You know, that's not easy to hear, not always. I mean, you have to just store that in your head and kind of just deal with it and, you know, put it aside and then, you know, go on to the next thing and to be able to, you know, hey, let's really dive into this nasty stuff you're saying about it. Great. I appreciate that you guys are willing to be really professional about that and take that very seriously.
Thanks, Jeff.
I think a lot of times these folks are they're frustrated. You know, I could think of the gentleman that said he was followed for 10 or 15 minutes. You know, I think he was on probation or parole, and he ended up going back to jail after that. So he's frustrated. He's venting, and he's looking for, you know, any avenue to try to you know, try to get some relief. And also some of these, like the gentleman stopped, detained, who matched the description. He, you know, I'm sure he felt violated from that. So again, I think that's why this process helps, like you talked about. Even though we have the best of intentions, we need to make sure we relay that to them and show them that we're looking into it.
Just quickly on that, is that the summary that we're providing of the complaints, is that sufficient? Are we looking for more? What questions might you have looking at those? Again, this is our first go around at this. I can't look at other police departments because I'm not aware of anybody else that's doing this. So if there's more information that you would like to see, just let us know, because we're willing to provide that. Again, we want to be transparent. There's nothing that we're hiding. And we want to make sure that this board gets the information that they feel comfortable with when they review these.
This looks really good.
It's really good. I would tag on, I know we probably don't want to put the letters in the public record for multiple reasons, but if you just tag at the end, letter was sent to the citizen, I think would be a useful punctuation mark at the end.
They all get letters.
Well, I know, but I mean, if you put in the report that's part of the public record here, that
Oh, I see what you're saying.
after doing this, you know, letter was, you know, sent, no response, or what other response is, because we had the open-ended, we talked about they'd at least have some notice they could, I can't remember if they were going to talk to us or just they knew that there was oversight. So I think having something out in there in the record is a useful period.
Yes, and we did start adding that after that first meeting. So now when they get these letters, it does say that in the disposition letter, it does say that these findings will be reviewed by the Public Safety Committee.
Great. So that's what I just think for this report, you just put that in at the end as that's the conclusion. Great.
All right, thanks for the feedback, everybody, and we can make changes as we go, but I think this is a good thing, again, to have the Public Safety Committee review these moving forward, and hopefully soon the use of force incidents too.
That's great.
Well, hopefully we don't have any to review, so that's...
Well, their bar is very low for what's use of force, so I'd be shocked.
Yep. So the next agenda item is just to kind of give an update on the department and also provide you some of the stats. I know, Bartlett, you're looking for stats at quarterly, at least, of kind of the work of the departments. I'll just, you guys, you got the numbers. I don't need to go through every line. I'll just highlight a few. Our call activity, I think, is pretty much back to normal, like it was prior to COVID. Our numbers are a little bit lower in some categories because of the 2 months where it was pretty quiet when COVID first started, but that is not the case anymore. Our mental health calls are pretty significant. We've had some pretty major self-harming type incidents over the last couple months that I've never seen in my time in law enforcement. But again, I contribute that to what we're going through right now with COVID and in society. But we've had some pretty significant self-harming mental health calls over the last couple months. The other interesting note is if you look at our domestic incidents, as of the end of September, we're at 100, and we usually average about 120. So I'd be pretty shocked that we're not going to be well over the 120 mark at the end of this year at 2020. The other interesting note is the vehicle registration titles that is processed. If you can take a look at that number, so we average about 50, and we're close to 700 now, and that is a result of DOT pretty much shutting down all of their operations and deferring that foot traffic to other municipalities. And it appears that a lot of that is coming to our departments. That has had a huge impact on our operations, as that's our records department. So every time somebody comes to that window, they have to get up from their desk from typing a report, and they have to deal with that vehicle registration and titles request. We make very little money on these title and vehicle registration processes, but it's a service that we wanted to continue to provide. But as we enter 2021, and if DOT doesn't change some of their practices, this is something that we're going to really have to look at, because it's having a huge negative impact on us processing reports. Currently, we're down 300 some reports in our records departments, and it continues to go up. So that's pretty significant. And again, I think we made $8,000, maybe $9,000 on those almost 700 vehicle registrations. It's a small percentage that we're getting, and DOT still getting a good portion of those funds. Just trying to take a look at any other notes I made on the numbers.
Have you checked into, are the other departments having the same issue? Police departments having the same registration issues?
They are, but we're the closest one to DOT. I think we're one of the few in Dane County that is doing vehicle registration, so we get the majority of the foot traffic. There are times there's 4 or 5 people waiting in line to have a vehicle titled, because again, there's very few places that are open to do it, and DOT is not taking walking in traffic or foot traffic at this time.
So
I can speak to that a little bit. I work at the DOT, and I don't think that's going to be changing anytime soon. Like, there are only other 2 in Madison area. There are only 2 other places, private places. There's like a check and a cash kind of place, and I think a PLS service on Madison that does it, and they have very limited service in terms of what they actually do. So in terms of being not quite as limited as other places are, you guys are the show here in Dane County.
Wow.
So.
Is there, can we talk to Diane Hellebrand or Senator Erpenbach or somebody to try to get you guys some relief?
Are you talking to Jeff, or are you talking to me, Bartlett?
I'm talking to you, Troy.
Oh,
sorry.
I don't know. I don't know if they would have be able to influence that and change that. I think that'd probably be a DOT decision. And Jeff, you might be able to answer that better than I can. Is there something down? Is there a deadline that there's talk of DOT coming back to normal operations?
It's been very fluid. It's evolving. I mean, as you might know, like, driver's licenses have been periodically being extended. That's a decision that appears to be getting reviewed every 60 to 90 days or so, depending on what the flow is. So I imagine, they're constantly monitoring it, and with what they're seeing, I don't think they're going to change that, because otherwise we'd just be getting hammered with foot traffic. So.
Yeah, it's something that we're going to have to monitor, and we might have to make some adjustments on our end if things don't change, because again, it's really having a huge impact on our operations, and we want to provide that service. But as I mentioned, when you're over 300 cases down in our records department, it again is something that we need to evaluate and see if it's really worth our time when we're making very little revenue for the city on this.
So I just I mean, I love sticking my nose in stuff, but I should probably defer to you on this, Chief. Both Diane Hesselbein and John Erpenbach were on our recent Good Neighbor meetings and said, anybody have any issues they can work on, they'd love to, because they don't get to go into legislature anymore. So feel free to reach out to them if at all, any inclination just to dig around, kick some tires.
Perfect. Thanks, Bartlett. I'll definitely keep that in mind. And this is almost a weekly conversation with our departments, and it'll continue to be that way while COVID is having a huge impact on all of us. So definitely, I'll keep that in mind if we need to evaluate this and try to make some changes in the near future. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions on the stats that I provided?
Yeah, you talked about the self-harm, and that one scares me a lot. Where does that fall in the data charts or the chart here?
That'd be the citizen service request. So you'd see that 8,847 as of the end of September.
Yeah.
And then the total incidents is 11,672. So that is a combination of the citizen service request and then officers doing self-initiated activity like traffic stops, stopping out to at a business, anything like that. That's the 3,398. And with our recent transition to our new records management system, we'll be actually able to identify more of those mental health calls than in the past when it just went into total incidents. Now we're going to be able to flag mental health calls more easily going forward, but we just transitioned to that new records management system within the last month or two.
Okay, good.
And then just a couple department updates. We recently learned that Detective Patty Faust, who has been with the department for 31 years, is going to retire at the end of this year. She is our most seasoned detective, a fantastic employee. She's going to be greatly missed. She gets all of our sensitive crime investigations. We're dreading the day that Patty was going to state that she was going to retire, and that happened within the last month. So we're currently in the process of replacing her in our detective bureau. And we're also interviewing some candidates from our latest recruitment process to hopefully hire them and get them on board. Unfortunately, a number of them don't have the academy. The academies are full starting in January, so there is a possibility that we wouldn't be able to hire somebody until August, which further delays getting them out on the road based on going to the academy and then field training for 14 weeks. So even if we got them in the academy in January, we're hoping that we can find somewhere in the state that there's an opening. They wouldn't get out of the academy until May. We wouldn't have them out on solo patrol until probably fall of 2021. So we'll be running short for a few months, almost a full year by the time that we hire her replacement and get them ready to be trained on the road. We currently have one officer in field training who's doing very well. He actually came from Fond du Lac PD. We also have a conditional offer out to an officer who is currently in the academy here in Madison. And if they successfully complete the academy, they will start with our department at the end of at the end of 20 or in early 21. Other than that, those are kind of the significant updates since the last time we met. Travis, can you think of any other updates internally?
I think you covered everything.
Perfect. And then the last item on the agenda is a quick conversation about the comprehensive plan. Hopefully no one read the 147 pages. If you did, kudos to you, because it's a lot. But the city and specifically the planning department, they have been working on a comprehensive plan, looking at transportation, housing, the land use in the city in the future. And during these discussions with other committees, the topic of adding some language about public safety into this comprehensive plan has been mentioned. Specifically, some of the language that they're talking about as in this comprehensive plan that they would like to see is something along the lines as the city grows, so do the demands for our first responders. The city should continue to pursue best practices to ensure that we are adequately staffed in police, EMS, and fire. That type of language they wanted me to bring in front of the Public Safety Committee to see if this is something that you think should go in the comprehensive plan. And if so, if that you have any ideas where you think it should go. So basically they wanted me to bring the comprehensive plan to all of you and then just get your input on whether you think language about making sure that there's adequate staffing for first responders should also be in this comprehensive plan.
Well, that's a lot to digest right at first. With to tell you the truth, without actually, with only skimming over the comprehensive plan, it's. I would say that would be when we get into first responders, that might start to fall outside of the purview of the committee a little bit. Um, um, I mean, unless you want to broaden some of the voices that wind up, on serving on the committee here.
One
Yeah,
thing I just, you are doing, I mean, we started this path, Troy, I don't know, was it 6 months ago or something, maybe even longer than that. You and I started having a discussion about some of the really progressive policies you guys have instituted. And we keep hearing it more and more, how we really are creating new pathways for citizen engagement compared to other departments. And that seems to fit very nicely with the overall theme of the comprehensive plan. And so I think it definitely fits in. So if you look in, even under table of contents where they're doing their big vision, kind of big picture stuff, with the governance and partnerships, I think very easily we could slip in, our public services broad brush for that period are, exhibiting excellence in community engagement beyond, standard expectations, or however we end up wording that, but just like we are fully engaged with our community with the services we provide. I think that would be a great way just to set the bar, and then we're a subset of that. So we, to Jeff's point, we don't have to tell everyone else what we're doing, but we can certainly put that as a marker. And then wherever we can put in, and maybe it becomes governance, or maybe it becomes character, really talk about some of these specific policies you're engaged in and the reasoning behind it, down to what we've just talked about with the complaints and all. Is like, we are here for public safety. It's like the sewer, we're not a sewer district, we're a sanitary district. We're here for public health. You're here for all of us, and you're fully engaged with us. And so I think that we very much want to put that in this, because none of this exists unless we're safe and comfortable with the people helping us with our safety.
Any other thoughts by other committee members?
Yes, I have a question, just a broader question. When I saw this document before you sent it, I saw it as like, this is done. So you're saying that there's some flexibility in this document, correct?
Yes, it's still in draft form, but I think they do want to finalize it soon, because I think they've been working on it for a number of months. But from what I'm told, it's still in draft form and changes still can be made. And I think for the most part, the changes are waiting on public safety. If there's any language that wants to be added, that we want to add it to this document.
Okay. I feel like I need to read the 100 pages now to figure out exactly where this is the appropriate messaging. I mean, I've definitely skimmed through it, but not attended to the whole document.
One of the other questions that they had is how specific. I think Bartlett did a really great job of summarizing a wide variety of things, but one of the things that's national average for a number of officers per 1,000 population is 2.4, and currently in Middleton we're at 1.8. It's the lowest since we've been keeping track in 2005, and again goes back to that conversation we had a few months ago about the need to add officers as the city grows. So we can keep it generic, like what Bartlett said. I really like that. Or we can also kind of narrow it down to, there's a certain goal that we're trying to maintain for the number of officers per 1,000 population. It kind of gets into some really tough areas, and I don't usually like to say that we need 2.1 officers per 1,000. But I think it's important to emphasize that we are getting lower and lower as the city grows, and there's a need, and we need to continue to fight for that. Otherwise, as I mentioned before, we're going to have some really tough conversations on what surfaces are we going to have to eliminate so we can continue to offer the the most important ones to the citizens of this community.
You know, it sounds strange. I mean, it's kind of weird. The way they have this set up, there's not a clean plate outside of the very beginning. I would pitch that we should put public service, I mean the public safety, you guys, under character. Because they talk about the character of the community and all that. And I think you could slip in something about maintaining staffing levels comparable to, you know, the demographics, or, you know, however there's a way to wordsmith that where it's, we don't have to say 2.1, but we can say there are benchmarks and we're going to be at that benchmark, but we are here, the character of our police is in keeping with our good neighbor image and the ideals of this community, which is integrated public service. We're here to help.
We would like to foster, I'd like to see some language that we like to foster strong community relationships between its public servants and a stronger relationship between the understanding of the needs of those public servants.
Yeah.
Something that could be stated a lot better, but a lot cleaner. So.
Yeah, great.
So Emily, not to pick on you guys, but there came out with a survey from citizens on how much they appreciate the government, and the local government got like an 80 or 85%, and the federal government got like a 24%. So I'm just saying, we want to build on that.
Why I serve locally, because during the day I don't get any love, but you guys.
I think 24% is an improvement.
I fill a pothole. I gotta tell you, people love me on my block. They're like, I'm no longer like.
That's right. That's right.
About potholes, man. But thanks for the info. I'm gonna borrow that.
Anyway, no, I think, I mean, just all the work you guys are doing, I mean, it really is extraordinary, and it's, like I said, it's the messaging. It's almost, I mean, literally, it's almost branding, like we're just talking about, right? There's just, we got to overcome this hump. The fact that people just assume tough, bad, you're out to get me, you know, and it's getting through it. And this can help us really make that statement. Like, look, we want to be seen. We're here as the community, for the community, part of the community. It's us. And so that's why I think putting it under that character might be a good place to suggest it. They may move it, but I think that'd be cool.
I have to say, I finally just did a search on the word safety in the document just to see like where does any mention of police or public safety come into play that's not related to, you know, sidewalks or things like that. I'm on page 136 where I finally found it. And I guess I'm surprised to the fact that it's so buried. And I don't know what the history of this kind of document has been in the city and how much this has been a part of it. But it's just surprising that like that F that you've just pulled out there, prioritize high quality public safety for the betterment of the community. Again, I haven't reviewed this full document, so I don't want to say that I know, but it's just surprising that that's where it first appears in this kind of form.
Think of who's writing it. I mean, it's a bunch of pencil necks in the office. Wait, I'm in an office. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's the planners and the visionaries and all that. It's not the boots on the ground.
Thanks for finding that, Kathleen. I didn't even know that had been added. So I appreciate you finding that.
Where the hell is it? Why is that not showing up? Oh, there.
I didn't realize that was the last page of the document until I just kept scrolling.
Wow. Total afterthought.
So would there be a recommendation to have language other than this in that character section? Is that what the feedback I'm getting from the committee members?
I just dropped a suggestion into the chat. So since I'm starting to lose the ability to speak. So
I can tell you when I ran for office, I ran on potholes, parks, and public safety. And I got a 90% head shake at doors. So maybe a little earlier than the last page.
Yeah.
Because at least in my district, people are like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Which brings us back to the first topic with the doorbell ring thing. People in my district, yes, we're in.
I really hate to say it. I mean, I love our city staff and I love the planners. I mean, I know them all and they're all awesome. I'm not going to say this is insulting, but it's so clearly an afterthought. I mean, you're after the senior center and before access to recreation. I mean, so I really want to bolster what you're doing. And so that's why I think let's put the pitch, put it in strongly up in, where did I say it was in culture, or whatever it was?
Character, the character section.
Character. Yeah, I think that is important. I really do. And I'll, to the extent you need, I'll fight with you on that. And it seems like a silly thing because it's just another white paper out there, but this is going to set the stage for a long time. And I think it's a chance to take a stand.
Great feedback. Thank you. I'll work with Abby and we'll make sure that language gets added to this document.
Yeah. And really, this is a chance. Don't be shy about really promoting all the good work you've been doing. Let's tee off on it.
Perfect. Thank you.
And just to add to that, the reason I moved to Middleton was because I wanted to raise my kids in Middleton. It's a safe, neighborly city. It's a great community. It's a great place to raise kids. And we didn't live here when the kids were born, and so we moved here because it was safe. And so I'm saying that because I said public safety when I ran, but I didn't want to run off with that as my first, but it's what pulled me here. So it might be that afterthought because we are safe and it is a great community. But what they're saying is spot on. So I think it's great.
Yeah, Emily, you summed that up perfectly. I think usually public safety is not thought of until something bad happens. I don't hear from a lot of citizens when things are going well, but when we had the shots fired, there's a lot of concern within our community, as there should be. I would be really concerned too when we had 4 or 5 instances of shots being fired in our city. That if we get one a year, that's pretty rare. And then in a number of weeks, we had a couple. So you're right. I think that is the case, that people feel really safe here, and I don't hear from them when we feel safe, but when they start to feel that uneasy feeling of where are we going, what direction is the city heading in, that's when I usually get the feedback. So I think that's an excellent point that you bring up.
And I don't think we should shy away from the fact that staffing is part of the equation. I mean, you talk about this, Chief Ellenbrand. The section F that we were just looking at talks about how the personnel should have access to equipment and the things, but we need the people to ensure, like those things that have to come together. And given the expansion in the number of residents and households, I think those things have to come together. Not just like we have to make sure they have the equipment. We need the people to ensure the safety and have the necessary resources that go along with that.
That's a great point, Kathleen. I think that's a perfect place to put it. I think we talk about philosophy and style up and character, and then in that we can leave the footnote of paragraph F on the last page, but definitely put in that people appropriate to the size of the city. That's a great place to put it.
Great, thank you. Great feedback.
And if you need help, I don't think you do. You guys have good people there. And Abby's awesome, but you can run stuff past me. I really wanted you to tee off on this. This is a great opportunity.
Perfect. Thanks, Bartlett. I'll keep you in mind.
All right. That was great. Future agenda items. When are we going to meet again? When do you guys want to meet? We're getting into holidays. It's getting sticky, but we are asking for a lot of information. Think we can go January?
I would say January.
Okay. Can't remember. Do we have a set day of the week that, or like the third? I don't even know what today is.
My wife is screaming at me to stop scheduling meetings for Thursdays.
Is there a better night that's Thursday seems to work the best, especially for alders. Emily, tell me if that's something different, but I know usually throughout the week, Thursday is the only day that most alders don't have other meetings scheduled.
I could probably make just about any other night work a little bit better. Just wife is saying, hey, kids need rides too. So, and apparently I've punched my card on a few of them. So it's.
Well, I could send out a doodle poll in early January and pick a few, try Tuesday, Wednesdays. I assume Mondays aren't great for people, and Fridays probably aren't everybody's favorite either. But I'll send out a doodle poll with the number of dates, and we can find one that hopefully will work for everybody.
Right.
That'll be great.
Right.
That'll be great. Coming out, I think we've got some other reports you want to give. I think when's the annual report come out? Is that about that time? We have a draft?
It'll probably be March. It'll be a little bit earlier than last year just because of all the changes, and COVID really put us behind. So we usually give the deadline of late February, and then we review the documents. So I would say probably mid-March, late March, we'd probably have that finalized next year, I should say.
Okay, so without anything really pressing on the agenda, we'll have some reports and all. I think there's another committee that does it, but is there any point talking to the lieutenants or meeting some of the other staffers you've got just on any? I'm kind of asking you if that'd be useful.
Yeah, if this committee would find it helpful to meet the other supervisors, I think that'd be a great thing. I don't think we've ever done that before, but I actually really like that idea.
Yeah, because I mean we're making so much headway, and I'm sorry, Katsuke, say your last name for me, Travis.
Kuski.
It's
a tongue twister.
Are you? I don't even know are you captain?
Yep.
You're captain. Okay. How many captains do we have? How many lieutenants? I mean, it's like you do such great work with this, and so you understand what we're going. And it'd be nice, I think, for other people to have us talk through how important some of these things that may seem annoying to them, how much of a difference that makes. And we're just representatives of the community, but we do talk to people. So I think that would be useful. So I don't know what levels we want to get to talk through that, but I think it'd be great.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to do the lieutenants. So we have 2 captains and then 4 lieutenants. There's a lieutenant on each of the 3 patrol ships, 1st, 2nd, 3rd. And then Darren Zimmerman is the ISB lieutenant, which is our detectives. So yeah, they're kind of the mid-command staff. They're in charge of their units. So they'd have a really good idea of, kind of the pulse of their shift, their unit, and then that'd be a great group to bring in, I think.
Yeah, I would really like that because, and I want them to I want to hear from them, and I want them to hear from us too. And then this importance of, I mean, especially now things are so weird with COVID, but tying in with the community and that just general sensibility. I think we're right on the cusp, I think, of just phenomenal. I mean, we're great anyway, but we're right on the cusp of really being transformative. I believe, I choose to believe that. So if we can keep that rolling, I think we're going to see some really great things.
Yeah, we can chat about making that for maybe the January.
Cool. All right. With that,
real quick, I attended the training last week, the use of force training. So I don't know if others have had the chance. I know somebody was on.
I did.
I was on one.
Jeff. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah. Okay, Kathleen. Yeah, we had folks with us, and Susan West was in my group, but it was really, really awesome. And I want to say a special thanks to the police for hosting that and for doing a great job training.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That was cool.
But we're going to expand that. We want to do that hands-on in-person training, and I think that'll be even more beneficial instead of watching a PowerPoint for 2 hours. I think from the feedback we've gotten in the past from our Citizens Academy, that hands-on is really, really eye-opening for everybody.
That's going to be cool. Last chance for comments before I call us adjourned. we're going to go to adjournment. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Great
Have a
seeing
good
everyone.
night.
Thanks for the presentations.
Yep,
Yep.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Take care.